So I am here today to introduce the new 5e. It is a rule set created from that what I feel is the cold carcass of fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons. Um, and it's odd that I am introducing this now, though I've been working on it for the last 2 or 3 years. Oddly, well, no, that's not true. That was something else. About a year. Um, it kind of coincides now with one edition coming up, or one D&D coming up, that I'm going to do this. Basically, I guess you could still call it technically a house rule set. And I'm not charging for this, at least not this time. So this is just something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, having ran and played in a lot of fifth edition games. Now I come from the OSR. I was literally playing the game when it was zero edition. So I have this insight of these different editions, and the reason I'm doing the new 5e isn't because 5e is so popular. I think I'm going to get a lot of people to play it. I'm doing it because I actually like 5th edition, at least the framework, a lot of the framework. But as much as 5th edition gets wrong or gets right, it gets so many things wrong. And I think you can't fault 5th edition for that. I know this is becoming a discussion on 5th edition. Um, Stay with me. 5th edition was made by Hasbro, a company that designs games that families can get together and play and be done with them and move on. And they buy 5th edition, they buy Dungeons and Dragons, and they now have to have a game where, oh, we're going to play again next week. So they still have the mentality that has to be a game that's going to keep you in the game. You're not going to die off as often. You're not going to have as many issues as often. Oh, you were turned into stone last game? Well, don't worry. You'll make a saving throw and you'll be all over with. You cannot fault them on that. It's what makes it a very popular game across the board. It's why little Jimmy can play it and daddy can play it at the same time. If you go into an OSR game and little Jimmy dies the first time he gets hit by a rabbit bites him, he dies. And then what are you doing? Well, tough shit, Jamie. The rabbit killed you. That's not 5th edition. And again, I cannot fault it on that. But I feel to give it bite and to bring it back into the fold of real Dungeons and Dragons or real fantasy role playing games, and fantasy, I'm talking traditional fantasy derived from Tolkien and other things, and not this anime-ish. I don't know what you call this stuff. Anyway, I digress. So, what is the new 5e? It is a reimagining of the 5th edition rules. I will try to just go through character creation, let's say, to give you an idea. So, attributes are roll 4d6, drop the lowest score, arrange how you want, or by using the array that's found in the book. After you've rolled your scores, then you're going to pick a race, a class, and a path. Races are not traditional. They reflect my Last Days of Atlantis, and I'll go into those later, but they're not traditional. Humans get ability score increases, nobody else does. Um, then once you chose a race, you will choose a class. There are 3 classes. There is the expert, the spellcaster, and the warrior. Each class gives you proficiencies in armor and weapons. Experts get proficiency in leather and 3 weapons. Spellcasters are not proficient in any armor. I believe they're proficient in 2 weapons. And when I say proficient, a spellcaster could be proficient in a sword, a trident, any weapon. They're not regulated to minor weapons. A warrior is proficient in all armor, all weapons. The skills are different. The fighter gets the fighter skills that are in the um, old rule system, and they get to choose four of them. Same thing with the spellcaster. The expert can choose any four skills. There is no list to choose from. They are experts. And they also get proficiency in, I believe it's two tool sets, maybe one. I can't remember now off the top of my head. Whereas the other two do not get proficiency in any tools. Now, later on, a character gets what's called boon, and you can gain a proficiency in something in one of those, like a tool set if you want. But we're still to class. I mean race, class. So those are the three things, the three classes. Also, each class gets attributes or abilities, right? So, for instance, for the spellcaster, the only ability a spellcaster gets is spellcasting, and all that implies. And that's pretty much like fifth edition. Um, you have a formula for attack, spell attacks, and spell saves that still stays the same. Even the advancement of spells stays the same. Um, so pretty much the spellcaster is kind of like the sorcerer, but with a lot of things taken off. um, then the warrior has certain things, and you get all the things you get for your class. You get at first level, so nothing goes up in levels. You are basically what you have. The only thing that goes up in levels is your paths, which I'll get to in a minute. Um, Also, in this rule set, your hit dice are, I believe, experts and spellcasters is a D6, and the warriors a D10. Um, Also, damage, weapon damage. Each class has weapon damage. I believe spellcasters and experts, their weapons do a D6, whereas a warrior does a D10. So there's no more need to know the damage of a weapon does. Now, I heard some outcry about this. In fact, I would say it's really odd. I'll come up with this huge, you know, change in rules, and this is the one they always pick. Well, why would I pick a sword over a bow and arrow? Well, you do it because one's a melee weapon, so one's a distance weapon. So weapons do have other qualities why you would pick them besides damage. Yes, you're correct. For the most part, and except for like two-handed weapons, I believe gives you a +1 damage or something like that. So, there is a reasoning behind something really extreme. For the most part, weapons damage is determined by your class. So after you pick class, there are paths. What are paths? Well, basically, I use a lot of I don't know what you call them in fifth edition, archetypes or whatever. Maybe they even call paths. Anyway, so for instance, a rogue can be a thief, but only a thief can only be a rogue in fifth edition. Why can't a spellcaster be a thief? Why can't so in the new 5e, your class doesn't really define what all you can do. I mean, it does define a lot, but really your path is more the definition, right? A thief is something that transcends the class. Barbarian, oddly enough, descends the class. You know, I can see a path barbarian spellcaster that's kind of like a shaman, right? Maybe. So, except for mage, which is distinctly for a spellcaster, most paths can transcend class. Um, so I've included a lot of the archetypes from um, the fifth edition as it is. Forgive me. And I've actually included some of the classes into and made 'em just paths. I feel a lot of times, the 8 classes, it was just too much. And it's kind of the same concept being spun around differently. So, classes include things like barbarian, clerics, new concepts to my setting, a dream sovereign, a scion, a shadow apostate. These are people who served the Shadow Lord, but they broke away from him. They're not acolytes no more. They're now apostates. So that is, and then everything else is kind of character creation stays kind of the same, right? Um, Everybody has so many go pieces. I don't remember what they are. You roll for them. You get a certain amount of go pieces, and you buy your equipment. I thought about keeping like um equipment given at first level, but I don't know. I'm kind of old school, I guess. I want you to decide what. I think in many times, one of the things I didn't like about fifth edition was it just fed you. Oh, here's your starting equipment. Makes it simpler, yes. And I mean, I guess you could just say, if you want to use these starting equipments, you can, which fifth edition does. It says you can go and buy your own stuff if you want. But um, another thing I took out was background. I felt that background, while they were very interesting and again, it was another mechanic because when you pick a background, you're getting skills, you're getting, a feat, maybe something that goes along with it. But in a way, the backgrounds kind of outdid what they were trying to do. Oh, you're a nobleman. Well, a nobleman is this. And so it's always going to be this because that's the background. Whereas if somebody's just going to go, "I'm a nobleman." Well, what does that mean? Well, it means I don't have a title, or I might not have a title no more. It was stripped from me, and now I have to, regain it. Or I had lands, now they're gone. You know, you can't beat imagination. You can't beat, this pulling it out and making it special. Backgrounds actually undid the idea of a background. I did away with them. Um, So to create your character, you're rolling for the dice, you're choosing a race, class, and path, and you're doing what other little things, buying your equipment. That's creating character creation. Um, Another thing that will be different in this game is the combat's going to be kind of the same. As elements from it are going to be different. So in a turn, you can do attack. You can do Wait a minute, I'm sorry. You can do an action, a free action, and movement. I did not change movement from 5th edition. I still sometimes want to because I know by playing OSR, doing the attack and move, but not mixing the two, makes the game go very fast. But I have to concede and realize that it is more dynamic and it creates more interest in combat when you can move around. So I concede it. But actions and free actions show a big change. Bonus actions, reactions, and what else is the other thing? I think those are the two things. Those are all now free actions. So a free action definition is a very broad thing that doesn't take a full action, but you know, allows you to react or do something very small, but you only get one. The first thing I learned about 5th edition when I played to learn 5th edition was if you had to really choose your character because some people They're always going to have all those ability things, something that to do with all those. They're always going to have an attack, a reaction, a free action, a bonus action, and you're sitting there watching them do 'em all. I mean, you can time this snooze fest. It's too much. Now you have 3 things you can do in a turn. So that was my one of my big things. Another real big thing will be rests. I believe it's actually in the DM's guide or it's a similar thing. Basically, what I did is a short rest stays the same. It fulfills a lot of abilities. You got to do a short rest before you do again, that sort of thing. But short rests do not regain hit points. And in fact, long rests still regain hit points, but they regain them as you have done them in the short rest. Also, and I'm going in the book, I will make this clear. This is a time, if they're not in an inn somewhere with a door lock, sleeping away, resting on a nice bed, they are going to have encounter rolls. Now, will they actually, which may or may not break up that long rest or short rest, right? In other words, when you're out in the field doing God knows what, getting a short and long rest is going to be hard. So you might have to stop and at least go, not necessarily to an end, but someplace where you know there's going to be a relatively amount of safety. Otherwise, you're in a dungeon, you're in the wilderness, shit happens. So these are some of the things I've done with what I call the new 5e. Um, and when you look at, for instance, you look at the class, like I said, all your class abilities you get first level, but each class only has no more than 3 or 4 things that they have that define them as a class. Paths do increase, but they're not a ton of stuff like they were in the past. In the past, in fifth edition, you're these superhero tanks. In this edition, or not edition, in my rule set, you are not. You're basically a more refined OSR character, in my opinion. And in play tests, which we've now been doing for about, I don't know, we've done it this year. I found I have in fact, the one time I did modify a monster, I almost killed the whole party. So I apologized to him because um, it was very powerful. I don't need to modify monsters in any way. I once in a blue moon, I think, oh, the armor class is a little too low, so I'll heighten the armor class. I've never had to heighten the um, hit points, and their powers are perfectly fine so far. I mean, also, I'm finding I can actually use a monster, and I don't have to use 5 or different combination things to make the encounter viable. A monster is a good enough encounter in so far. I think we're at, I say we're at level 7 or 8, something like that. So, the new 5e is very recognizable from 5th edition. In fact, you could just say a lot of it is, stuff from or at least ideas, concepts from the Dungeon Masters that's implemented in the 5th edition. Um, though things like in combat, and it's the small things, right? Like, for instance, actions in combat, attack and all these things, use an object, whatever. I took out disengage. Very small, one of the small minor things. But disengage is very important. Disengage is, oh, this is too hard for me. I just want out. No, bullshit. You got into the fight, you're going to finish it. Now you can try to withdraw and you can try to run away. And since there's no attacks of opportunity, you might, unless oh, that's another, forgot about that one. And I'll get into attacks opportunity. But for the most part, there's no attacks opportunity. So disengage is gone. That's 5th edition, keep you in the game so you can play with daddy and mommy as a family. That's not in this game. No disengage. As a tax opportunity, the only time you get a tax opportunity is if on the board, or within the theater of the mind, you realize I'm going to run around my opponent or I'm going to run through his area, then that's a attack opportunity. But if I'm running away or we're face to face, I step back, there's no attack opportunity. If he wants to hit me in his turn when it's his turn to attack, he can. Now the question is, can you get away fast enough or far enough where he can't attack you? That might be, but all this stuff that's going to keep you, which kind of goes into saving throws and spells in the new 5e. You get saving throws, but that's it. One saving throw. If you got turned into stone, that's one saving throw. It's not. It's not negotiable. All right. It's not. Oh, I'm turning. I kind of feel like I'm turning. We stopped the spell or whatever. Now I'm not turning. Or I think you can make a saving throw every 5 minutes or some horrific. That's gone. You either save or you didn't. And there's so much to this um, agency to this by changing that one little rule. First off, spells are really fucking horrible now. You can get turned into stone by not making a saving throw. Well, shit, that's at least what, half and half chance, right? So it will make you think twice about attacking that Medusa by yourself, right? Um, so I want to go into more, and I guess I will in various other videos, but this is my introduction to the new 5e. Um, built upon 5th edition, but changed to take out the coddling to keep you into the game that it had before. And taking it down notches where you're not superheroes, but you are people of extraordinary abilities. And you are still very mortal. You can die very easily. You know, it's so now it's probably not a good idea to go up and wake the dragon. Or if you do, you better have a really good plan on what to do. Right. Um, so anyway, the new 5e. It is tied into my setting, The Last Days of Atlantis, subtitle, A Weird Fantasy Setting. I will go into that later too. So until then, I think that will be it. Thank you for listening in.